Okay, okay.
Good morning, everybody.
Let's see, where's everybody? Let's see here.
Can you see
Oh,
me?
hi. Yeah, I see you now. Hi, Ernie.
Hi.
How was Shabbos?
Beautiful.
Wow, nice. Where were you for Shabbos?
We're in Nice.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful.
Nice. Plenty of yeah, plenty of kosher restaurants there.
Yeah. We were at the Chabad.
Uh-huh. Where are we holding? I'm behind a little bit here.
Okay. I will tell you right now.
Good sign.
Yud Zayin,
Oh,
17.
okay.
So Rabbi Yezer was accused by the Roman government of minus, of being a Christian. And
Uh-huh.
Rabbi Kiva told him, "Vanacha v'alu v'nitfasta." Maybe Rabbi Kiva suggested that someone floated a minus idea, and you like enjoyed it. So Rabbi Eliezer responded, Amar Akiva, he's Kartani. Yes, you reminded me. I was walking in the upper market. Matzati Adam echad mitalmidei Yeshu Anotzri. By the way, do you have this in your Gemaras, or has this been censored out?
No, it's there.
It's there. Okay.
Yeah.
I found one of the students of Yeshua Notzri, Yaakov Ish Kvar Sachni Shmo. His name was
Art
Yaakov.
school doesn't. Art school doesn't have it.
Where it says, I encountered one particular heretic. That's how they phrase it.
Well, it's
I
not
see.
the echo.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, they left stuff out, right?
here it's in the Steinsatz. It says Yeshua Notzri.
Oh, not here.
Armelo Kasub Taraschem, because the word mean, when they talk about minus, mean is Mamin Yeshu Notzri. Mem
Mhm.
Yudon. Mamin Yeshu Notzri. Omelo kasubas taraschem lo taviet nan zona umechir kelev beis Hashem okecha. If you give a harlot an animal for her in payment for her services, there's a lav to bring such an animal as a korban to the Beis Hamikdash. That's an etnan zona. So the question was asked, Ma'al asos menu beis kisei lekohen gadol. Let's say you paid her money. Can you use the money to build a bathroom that the Kohen Gadol uses in the Beis Hamikdash? The shaila is because it's a davar bizayon, and this Johnny. This is we're on Yud Zayin, Amud Aleph near the top. The law martilo klum, and Rabbi Eliezer didn't respond. Omar li kach limadni Yeshua Notzri. So this guy Yaakov told Rabbi Eliezer that Yeshua Notzri had taught him that it's permitted. Because it says in a pasuk in Micha, Ki be'etnan zona kavtza, ve'ad etnan zona yashuvu. Meaning, Mimakam atinofes ba'u, this money came from a dirty place. Lamakam atinofes yelechu, it should go for a dirty place, like a bathroom. V'haneni adavar. And Rabbi Ezra said, I enjoyed the Dvar Torah. It's a chidush. So, if you remember, the Romans had arrested him for being close to Minos. So, and it was false. Rabbi Eliezer was not. But Rabbi Kiva explained to him, must be you had gotten some enjoyment on something that relates to Minos. And Rabbi Ezra is reminding himself that he had heard this Dvar Torah said over in the name of Yeshua Notzri, and he enjoyed it. And avarti mashakosu b'Torah harchek me'aleh drachecha. You have to distance yourself from bad things. Zuminus. You have to distance yourself from Christianity or false ideas. Val tikra vel pesach besa. Don't when it says don't get close to her house, zuar rishus. Don't get close to the government of any kind, strange governments. Ikadi amri, harchek malecha drachecha, zu minus varishus. The distancing refers to both minus and rishus. Val tikra vel pesach besa zu zona. That means don't even go close to a house of prostitution. Kama, when do you violate this lav? The arba amos. When you get within arba amos of such a place, that's already you're over the lav. V'rabbanon, fine. You told me what Yeshua Notzri darshaned. How do the Chachamim learn? Rabbanon hai me'estan zona my darshi be. What do they darshan? Rav Chisda, Dam Rav Chisda, kol zoina sheniskeres. A zona that sells herself for money. Hi Mario. We're on Yud Zion near the top. The Besof, he soicheres. She will end up paying money to men to have znus with her. Shenemar, uvesitcha esnon ve'esnon lo nosamacha. Pasuk in Cheskel. Upliga, this is a machlokas. This Rav Chisda is arguing with another place. Al Rav Padas, lo asra toira elakriva shogila arayis bilvad. It's getting close to any kind of sexual immorality. Shenemar, ish el kol she'er b'saro lo sekravula galos erva. And what kind of closeness? Some type of sexual immorality. You're supposed to stay away from that. Ula kevi osami beirav. Ula came home from yeshiva. Havimanoshek l'ula achse aviyadayu. He would kiss his sisters only on their hands. Va'amri la, some people say, abechadayu, on their chest. Uplikadidei. This mice of Ula is different, Amar Ula, Kira ba'ama osir, because you're not allowed to have relations with your sister, and this is too much kirva, it's too much closeness. Ishum lech amir nazir, schor lekarmelosikar, just like a nazir. You're supposed to keep a nazir away from grape juice or from grape products. So here as well, from the tzad erva, you have to stay away even from your sister. Then there's a pasuk in Mishlei, La aluka shtei vanois hav. What is this, my hav? Amar mar ukva, shtei banos shetzoekes megehenim. There are two types of people, because of suffering in Gehenim, they're always calling out, crying out. These are people showing meres belamazeh hava. Hav means to give. So they're demanding taxes all the time. Minus varshus. I guess the Christians always collected taxes, and the government always collects taxes. Ikadiami. V'kol Gehenim tzoekes v'meres. Gehenim calls out, Haviu lishtei banos. Bring me these daughters. Shutzoekes v'meres hava, which reveals the minus and the rishos, government people and the Christian people. Then it says in Mishlei, Kol bo'el lo yishuva v'lo yasigu orchos chayim. Now, when it says this is a woman who should not return, this is an analogy to Minos, to being heretic. They won't return if they go to Christianity. How will they find the right path in life? This is how you have to understand the drasha. Im yashuvu lo yasigu orchas chaim. Even if they do tshuva, they won't find the right path. Freak the Gemara lemema shekol hapars miminus bias that he can't live. Is anyone, even if he tries to do tshuva, v'hahida asay lekamoy. There was a woman who came in front of Rav Chizda, the amrele kalash bekalus, and she said to Rav Chizda, she was like confessing her sins. And she said that the easiest of my sins was asta b'na katan mibna gadol. Unfortunately, this woman had relations to her oldest son to give birth to her youngest son. I mean, she was a very promiscuous, terrible woman. And she revealed this to Rav Chisda. And it had to do with minus. It had to do with being a heretic. So he said, prepare her for her road. Prepare things for the road, which is a euphemism for make tachrichim for her, make the burial shrouds, because she's going to die. But uvelomesa, she didn't die. Now, midikamash kalash bekalusi, she'asta, that she had done much worse things. Michlal sheminus nami havabo. It's clear that she had minus with her. So she threw out all, caution to the wind. And yet she didn't die. We brought a statement before that somebody who's tried to do tshuva, even for minus, is not going to be allowed to do tshuva. And here's an example where she didn't die. So, Hahu, the Lahadr Bashap here, she's not a full choizer b'tshuva, Mishamachi Lamesa, because it was not a full tshuva, implying that if she did a full tshuva, she would have died. Ikedi Amri. Other people say that this is the kasha on when we said whoever separates from minus dies. That's miminus in. That's from being a heretic. But me'avero, low. But if your sin is sexual immorality, that it doesn't apply. And then we ask, Rav Chizda, Rav Chizda, Zorila Zuvda, make tachrichin, and she did die, Umesa. So midikamra kalash v'kalas, that this having a son from another son, and that was the easiest of her averas, michlal sheminus nami haviba, that it wasn't just sexual problems, it was also minus, and that's why she died. And then we ask, me'avera lo, that somebody was involved in sexual immorality and then separated from that. They don't die? I'll show you that they do die. Vatanya, famous Gemara. Amr alav al Rabbi Elazar ben Derdaya. Shlo yiniach zoyna achas ba'olam shlo ba'aleh. Now we're talking about a Tana. Rabbi Elazar ben Derdaya is a Tana. And yet he had a fault. He had tried out all zonas in the world. He was very involved in sexual immorality. Pamachas shama sheyesh zona achas b'kroch hayam. He had heard that there was a zona on the islands. Vaisa notelis kiss dinarim b'schar. She would collect a purse full of money for her wages. Notel kiss dinar v'halach v'avar leah. He took a purse of money and headed to her brothel. Shiva Naros. He had to cross 7 rivers. Bishar regel davar. Bishas hergel davar. While they were having relations, Hificha. She passed wind. Amra. So she said, Kishem shaficha zu eina chozeres limkoma, just like this wind that she passed doesn't come back to its place. Kach Elazar ben Udaya ein mekabel noso b'tshuva. Elazar ben Udaya will not be able to do tshuva. He heard this. Halach v'yashav ben shnei harim ugvos. He went and he sat between two mountains. Amar, harim ugvos bikshu alei rachmim. He asked for the mountains and the valleys to daven for him, that he should be able to do tshuva. Amar lo, ad shanu avakshim alecha, before we ask that tshuva for you, nevakesh latzmeinu, we have to do tshuva. Shnema ki harim yamushu v'agvos temutena, pasuk in Yeshaya. Omar, Shemaim v'aretz bikshu alei rachmim. He asked for heaven and earth to daven for him. Amru ad shanu avakshim alecha, nevakesh latzmeinu. We have to ask for ourselves, Shnema ki shamayim ka'ashan nimlachu v'aretz kebeged tivla. Amar Chama Levana bikshu alei rachmim. He asked for the sun and the moon. Amru lo ad shanu avakshim alecha, nevakesh latzmeinu. Shnemar the chafra levana u'boishas achama. The embarrassment of the chama and the levana. Amar koichavim u'mazalei bikshu alei rachmim. The stars and the constellations should daven for you. Amar lo ad shanu avakshim alecha, nevakesh latzmeinu. Shnemar v'nimaku kol tzvar shamayim. All the forces of heaven. So Rabbi Elazar ben Adai realized, Omar, ein adavar talui ela bi. It's not dependent on any outside force, it's dependent on me. Hiniach rosha ben birka v'ga b'vchea ad sheyatsa nishmaso. He put his head between his knees, he cried, until his neshama left him. Yatsa baskal v'om Rabbi Elazar ben Adai mizum l'chelim haba. A baskal came, a heavenly voice came out and said, Rabbi Elazar is invited to Olam Haba. Now, here, the Gemara's kasha is, his sin was of his sexual immorality, baverav, the miss, and he died, even though he did tshuva. So Nami came to Avik Batuva. I know, but he was very connected, says the Gemara, to sexual immorality. He had a very strong physical, like an addiction. And therefore, it's kaminus damya. That's similar to the addiction to heresy. It's his own Avodah Zarah. And therefore he falls into that category. When Rebbe heard of this story, there are people who earn their right to Olam Haba through avodah of many years. Some are koina their Olam Haba in 1 second. They called him Rabbi Elazar ben Dordaya. Rab Chanina, Rav Yonason have a causely be'orcha. Rav Chanina and Rav Yonason were traveling. Matu lahanu treshvili. They came to a fork in the road. Chad patzi apischa, the Avodah Zarah. One road led to a base of Avodah Zarah. V'chad patzi apischa, the base of Zonis. The other road ended up in a brothel. Amar lei chad l'chave. Nasal apischa Avodah Zarah. One of them suggested to the other that we should travel the road towards the Avodah Zarah. The Nachis Yitzra, the Anshe Knesset Adola, when they came back to build Bayit Sheni, one of the things they did, Rashi reminds us, is they davened that the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah would be removed. It was it. So there's no Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. We should go down the road for Avodah Zarah. Amarle, the other person said, no. Nezla Pilcha Deves knows. No. Let's go down the road that leads to the house of prostitution, and there we have a Yetzer Hara for that. But we will be able to conquer or defeat our Yetzer Hara. We will get schar for that. Fine. So they decided to do that. Kimotu Hasam Chazinu, the Zoynes. When they walked through to the brothel, they saw the Zoynes there. Iskanu Kamayu. The Zoynes that normally hang out outside the base Zoynes had respect for these Kedolim and they went inside. Armelei Menalacha. He asked, I guess, one of the Zonos, from where do you learn this? Amrlei, Mizima Tishmar Alecha, Tavuna Tinatzra. In Mishlei, they were Talmidei Chachamim. They said you have to watch yourself from Zima, from immorality. And that the Torah protects people from it, and you are B'nai Torah. Amrlei Rabbanon L'Rava. So the Rabbanon asked Rava, my Mizima, what does it mean Mizima there? Ilema L'Torah, that the Torah will protect them, T'chsiv Bozima, Umetergaminon, Atzaschatoim. I mean, Zima means like an Eitzah, an advice, a Chochma, wisdom. Uksiv says, Hifli Eitzah Higdil Tushya. That if you have a lot of Torah, you have a lot of wisdom. Zima Tishmar Lechem Boilei. It should have said Zima Tishmar, the Zima should protect you, but it didn't say that. So Hachi Kaman. Midvar Zima Tishmar Lecha Tinatzrecha. The Torah will protect you from Zima. Okay. Tanrabana. Kishenitvis Rab Lozer ben Pratav, Rab Chanina ben Tradion, the Malchus. That means the Romans, when they were persecuting the Jews, they grabbed Rab Lozer ben Pratav, Rab Chanina ben Tradion. Omla Rab Lozer ben Pratav, Rab Chanina ben Tradion. Ashrecha shenifas dal dvar echad. Rav Elazar said to Rav Chanina ben Tradion, you are happy, are you? Because you were captured for one reason. What was his reason? He was studying Torah publicly. The Romans forbade teaching Torah, and that's what he was caught for. They are accusing me of 5 different averas. So Rav Chanina, I guess, had Ruach HaKodesh, told Rav Elazar, you were captured for 5 things, but you're going to be saved. Woe is to me that I was caught for one thing, but I'm not going to be saved. Rav Chanina ben Tradion tells Rav Elazar, you're going to be saved because not only did you study Torah, you were involved in Gemilas Chesed. You were Misameach Chasam V'Kala. You went to Levias, right? But I only studied Torah. Somebody who just studies Torah and doesn't involve himself in Gemilas Chesed, it's as if someone doesn't have a God. Shenemar. Yamim Rabim Yisrael, Lelo Elohei Emes, V'Lelo Kohen Mora, Lelo Torah. My Lelo Elohei Emes. What does it mean? They didn't have a true God. So like not like the true God. If you only do Torah, not Gemilas Chesed. So the Gemara says, how can you say that Rav Chananya ben Tradion didn't occupy himself with Gemilas Chesed? He did. Vatanya, Rav Elazar ben Yaakov Omer. L'yiten adam mois of l'arnaki shel tzedakah. Ele im kein mumuna alav tamid chacham Rav Chananya ben Tradion. Oh no, how can we say that Rav Chanina ben Tradion didn't do Gemilas Chesed? I'm going to show you a case that he did Gemilas Chesed. A person should not give his money to tzedakah unless the Gabbai tzedakah is someone who's a big Talmid Chacham as great as Rav Chanina ben Tradion. He was very trustworthy. When you gave him money, he didn't keep it. But me'avad lo avad. But personally, he didn't do tzedakah by himself. For Gemara, what do you mean, Vatanya? Amr lo. Rav Chanina ben Tradion told Elazar, Moshel purim neschalfili b'moshel tzedakah v'chalatim laniyim. Somebody once gave me money on Purim to give to aniyim, and I mixed them up with regular tzedakah and I gave them to aniyim. So that's a case where he did give his own personal money to tzedakah. So again, the Gemara says, Mevid offered, but the Kedabai law of it. He did, but he didn't do enough based on his wealth. Okay. Yisyav Rav and Pratya. So they had captured both of these Tanoim, and they're bringing them each to Din. So they're bringing now Rav and Pratya to Din. V'amru, my time at Tanisa, my time at Gonavta. Number one, they asked him, how come you studied Torah, you taught Torah, and they accused him of being a ganav. My time a ganavta. Those are the things that they accused him of. Amarle isaifa loy safra. If a person's involved in the sword, and ganovim used weapons, ain't a soifer. He can't be a ben Torah. The isafra loy saifa. If he's a ben Torah, he can't be a ganav. And you are accusing me of two opposite things that conflict with each other that can't be. They always talk about Hesder Yeshiva Bochrim as Saifa and Safra. They have both. They are men of war and they are men of the book. Now, Midahal Lesa Hanami Lesa. So since you can't have them both, so I cannot be guilty. Okay. My time of Karloch Rebbe. Now, there was a problem because the Romans had made a prohibition of teaching Torah. And the Romans had heard people calling him Rebbe. So they're asking him, why, if you didn't teach Torah, why do they call you Rebbe? So he answered, Rabban shall trace imani. The weavers, I'm like the master weaver, and I teach them. That's why they call me Rebbe. Okay. They wanted to check, does he know anything about weaving? Aisule tre kiburi. There's the warp and the woof by a loom. Shesi ve'erev. Shesi ve'erev, you would weave thread this way, and then you would weave thread this way. Like Mario, who made shirts, would the loom, and one is thicker than the other. One of the threads is thicker than the other. Amrole, they asked him, which one is the shesi, which thread is the warp and which is the woof? There's a very subtle difference, but an expert would know the difference. And the truth was, Rav Elazar ben Pratya was just making up the story to save his life. He didn't know anything about weaving. So Israchish le Nisa, a nace occurred. Asa Ziburisa, a wasp, came, Oisfe al Deshasya, and sat on the shesi, which I think is the warp. And then that was a male wasp, a female wasp, and sat on the shesi. And Asa Ziburisa, that's a female wasp, The also zibura, and a male wasp sat v'yosef al da'arav, and sat on the Erev. And that way he could tell the Romans, this one is the Shesni, this was the Erev. Right? On Melu, hi the Shasya v'hai. This is this. Because the thread that is in the warp is the makabel, receives the arev, like a female that is makabel the male. That's why the female was the single signal for which one it was this erev. My time la'asis lebeavidam. Now, Be'avidam was a place that they studied like philosophy, wisdom. They asked him, why didn't you come there? So many people were there. I was old. I was afraid I'd be trampled. So the Romans didn't accept that teretz because they said, well, nobody has ever been trampled there. So a nace happened, and that day, a old person got trampled. So all of their claims, he had been able to deal with all their claims. Now, he had released his Eved to freedom, and the Romans had made a gzera because they were very slave centric. They made a gzera, no one should release their slaves. So it was another thing I guess they accused him of. He denied it completely. So one of the avodim was going to stand up to testify. No, he had freed me. Also, Eliyahu Navi arrived and looked like one of the important people of Rome. All of these nisim are occurring, so here also was a nace. And this guy was a Russia, but he could see that all these nisim were preventing him of causing a problem for a Lazar. They didn't listen to him. Kam lememer lehu. They wouldn't listen to his testimony. Have a ksiva igrisa to have a ksiv mechashiva demachos l'shaduri lebei kesar. This guy who looked like Eliyahu Navi, I guess, had a letter where the important documents being sent to the emperor. V'shadru al yadei dehu gavra. And again, I guess it was to prove that this guy was trying to testify. They shouldn't believe him. Also, Eliyahu patke arba mea parsi. Eliyahu Navi threw that document. The document was going to prove that he was. They could believe him, but he threw it 400 miles away. Also, the aide ran away and he never came back. Therefore, nothing was left to accuse Rav Elazar ben Farti. He was saved. Okay, that's the story of Rav Elazar. But now Isyavu Rav Chanina ben Tradion. Now they brought Rav Chanina ben Tradion into the court. They asked him, you were caught teaching Torah. Why were you studying Torah? Because the Torah says this is what Hashem commands me to do. He had no terutzim. Miyad gazrolav l'sreifa. So immediately, the verdict was he was to be burned to death. Val ishto lariga, his wife was going to be killed with the sword. Val bito leishev bekuba shel zoynes, and his daughter was going to be put into a brothel. And the Gemara is not going to explain why these different punishments: sreifa, cherev, and znus. but that we will keep. That's a famous story of Rav Chanana ben Tradion. And we'll have some other very nice agaditas coming up. Okay, let's
Very good.
plan. Let me just plan the schedule. It's now Saturday night in Los Angeles.